time for us to check back in with the family history and stories of Opal Myers. Today is our last reading of this book. If you've missed any of the previous readings, though, you can look in the description below for a playlist, and you can also find the link in the description below of where you can buy this wonderful, wonderful book. Regrets. Earlier this year, within the same week, I lost two of my sisters, both younger than me. Velma died March 30th, 1986, and Beatrice died on April 4th. Since then, I've been thinking a lot more about getting old, especially because I've been sick for a while now and may not live much longer. It makes you realize just how short life on this earth is, how quickly it's over. You know, it seems like only a short time ago I was running barefoot through these parts, playing poison or playing house with my brother and sisters and our friends, or when I was listening to Miss Martson talk about Windsor Castle and English flower beds. It seems like only yesterday I was sitting in that old school desk next to Ernest playing horsey. So fast, it all goes by just so quickly. My life has been filled with blessings, my family, my children, my grandchildren, my church, and the people that I love there, my school children. I could go on with so many other blessings that the good Lord has allowed in my life. I am thankful for a long life and that I still have a good mind. I don't really have any regrets, except maybe that I was never able to rebuild the mission. Some people up here could never understand why rebuilding the mission was so important to me. Even to this day, a lot of them ask, well, just what exactly is a mission? To me, I think that's such a silly thing to ask. Many of them have heard of the mission and mission work all their lives, and yet they have not been involved enough to know what a mission is. Some of the others who have asked have actually worked with me on project after project, and they don't realize that they are the mission, just like I am the mission. All it really means is giving of your own self by doing whatever work you can do to help others. It's the ideas you have, the encouragement you can give, and inspiration you can pass on to help others do the same. To say it very simply, it's being a servant. It's being like Jesus was. So many people don't see it that way. I guess it was kind of confusing to them, me always talking about wanting to rebuild the mission. To me, the mission was everything for so much of my life. I feel that everyone, or at least every Christian, has a responsibility or has a mission in life. Maybe the Lord will give me a few more years to serve Him. I would like that. I hope you find your mission in life too, Lori. Much love, Opal Myers. So that's the last of the part from Opal, and now we'll read the epilogue that's from Barbara. February 14th, 2007. Commonplace. A commonplace life. We say and we sigh. But why should we sigh as we say the commonplace sun in the commonplace sky makes up the commonplace day? The moon and the stars are commonplace things, and the flower that blooms and the birds that sing. But dark were the world, and sad our lot, if the flowers failed and the sun shone not. And God, who studies each separate soul, out of commonplace lives make His beautiful whole. Susan Coolidge is who wrote that beautiful poem. Just like Opal and the mission workers at Ebenezer, we are all common, ordinary people. What makes an ordinary person extraordinary? Maybe it's the choice to commit ourselves to something or someone greater than ourselves, to look outward instead of always inward, to think of others more than we are concerned for our own lives. When we realize that there is a larger plan than just me and mine, then we have the opportunity of becoming a part of God's beautiful whole, and we start to see the world changing all around us. Opal was not a perfect person, Letters to Lori allows you to see some of those imperfect parts, and you can speculate about others. Neither were any of the mission workers perfect, and neither are you or I. It is not God's plan that any of us allow ourselves to be put on pedestals, to be idolized, or for our lives to be romanticized. That always has the danger of drawing attention to ourselves instead of pointing others to Christ. The danger of becoming ivory tower followers who, like Miss Alice quoted in Christie, crumble and fall apart when things get tough, and believe me, things will get tough. I, God, can't use ivory tower followers. They're plaster of Paris. They crumble and fall apart in life's press. So you've got to see life in the way it really is before you can do anything about evil. You cannot vanquish it. I can. But in my world, the battle against evil has to be a joint endeavor. You and me, I, God, in you, can have victory every time. And that was from Christie, chapter 7. Originally, I thought it would be a fun adventure looking for the cove that Catherine Marshall wrote of, but I found more, much, much more. At first, it was the mountains of eastern Tennessee that drew me back year after year. Then it was the people. It was Opal, her grown children and grandchildren as I got to know them. It was Roy Dan, Mitchell, Ruby, and other people at the Ebenezer Church. There was something about them that I loved. With Opal, though, there was a special connection, and I do believe I was drawn to her from the very first time I met her. She was very much an ordinary person, but by her life and commitment, somehow she challenged me to be more than I ever dreamed I could be. I am not alone. I am one of the hundreds whom she attracted and challenged, and by telling her story, maybe her life will go on to challenge thousands more. I hope so. The lives of committed people like Opal, Christie, Miss Martson, and the other mission workers are to inspire, encourage, and arouse us to be more like Christ, who was willing to give his life so that we all might have freedom and purpose. And then as we join together with God in the battle against the enemy of our soul, we can hold the victory every time. If you have been inspired by the life of Opal and Christie, then I challenge you to also look beyond yourself, beyond your circumstances, and make a difference in someone's life today. God bless you always. Memories. How could I ever explain the feelings that I have for this industrious mountain woman? These feelings cannot be explained, and I cannot place my finger on any particular attribute. She is simply the type of person with the qualities others admire and the world seems to be missing in our day and time. Maybe it is because she is that link with the past when diligence, honesty, kindness, accepting the stranger into your home, and being a good neighbor were the model, a time when the golden rule was the standard to live by instead of our selfish, greedy way of life. That is, I guess, what makes her loved and adored by so many. She is given unselfishly of herself and her limited possessions. She has planted a garden of love, generosity, dedication, and goodwill, and it is harvest time. That was from Barbara's Journal, August 21st, 1989. It's now been a while since we've been back, but my heart is still there along with both my memories and the reflections of Opal as well. Some of my favorite ones personally are centered around homecoming, always the second Sunday in August, and Decoration Day in May. On those occasions, for years, our family would travel to Opal's, arriving early enough to help with the preparations. Manly would help Larry, Elcon, mow the grass around the houses and picnic areas, and then we'd eat both sides of the road all the way down to the old 15th. I would help with the cooking, and we would catch up on all the latest happenings. Of course, Heather could always be counted on to help make the mud pudding. Before Decorations Day, Manly and I, along with our kids, would help mow and clean the cemetery. It made us feel like we were part of the family and the community. Larry was especially good to us and a joy to be around. He has a heart like Opal's and also loves being around people the way Opal did. Manly will never forget the time when we were leaving after a homecoming when he ran the tire of our car into a sharp rock, rendering our tire flat. We had no spare tire with us, but without any hesitation whatsoever, Larry gave us his. The next time we came back, we brought a brand new tire with us. He could not believe that we would replace his old tire with a new one, and he just went on and on about it. Another time I was at Opal's, her sons took Jonathan, Heather, and me for a ride in the Scout over Round Mountain. Oh my, white knuckle time for sure, but the kids loved it. On May 8, 1991, I got a call that Opal wouldn't last much longer. The call was not a surprise, since she had been seriously ill for some time, but I had hoped to see her just once more. Quickly, I threw some things together and left within minutes. Manly was going to pack up the kids and the things that I forgot to pack and follow me. Just after I left, Manly got a call saying that Opal had passed. Knowing that I was going to stop for gas, he jumped into his car and took off after me, hoping to catch me before I left the gas station. I decided to go on to be with the family, and Manly went back home to pack. The viewing and funeral was something that I will never forget. We arrived at the funeral home in Newport and sat with the family. Manly was one of the pallbearers. Before long, every seat was filled, and people were lined up outside the funeral home door all the way around the corner. They came in the door at the front of the room we were in, walked by the casket, and then down the aisle to the door at the other end of the room. Some people wept openly, others talked about the memories they had of Opal as their teacher, and others mourned in silence. When the procession left the funeral home, we were probably about the fourth or fifth car back from the hearse as we began the 20-mile journey to Ebenezer, the church she had loved since her childhood. Somewhere on the highway between Newport and Del Rio, I looked out the back window to observe an unending trail of cars, literally as far as I could see. It was amazing the number of lives that Opal had touched. Not long after we turned onto the old 15th, the hearse overheated. As we waited in our cars for what felt a long time, I thought that many of the people, tired of waiting, might turn back. But when we got to the church, there were more people than the little church could hold. It was so packed that many had to stand outside. The only vacant seat was Opal's. As I sat there waiting for the service to begin, I could vividly imagine Opal ringing all the bells in heaven. The weather that week had been rainy, and the ground around the gate into the cemetery was nothing but mud. Too muddy for the pallbearers to walk through safely carrying the casket. They had to lift it over the fence at a drier spot. Because of Opal, my life is richer and fuller. And now, after all this time of repeatedly hearing and reading Miss Martson's words as I continue to work on this book, I too truly believe that even I can do and become anything I want to be if I am willing to work at it and never give up on my dreams. After all, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. A dream come true. Opal never gave up hope that Christy would one day be made into a movie. It was her biggest dream, and most of the letters I received from her mentioned something about Christy, especially during the times when someone from Hollywood came to visit her. She loved talking about Ebenezer Mission and Christy. After Opal left us and passed on to be with the saints, she probably talked with everyone in heaven about Ebenezer, just like she had talked to everyone on earth. Can't you just imagine Opal, Catherine, Lenora, Miss Martson, Mrs. Henderson, and the other mission workers getting together, drawing everyone into their conversation about Christy becoming a movie, until finally all the occupants of heaven were pleading with God, "All right, enough already. Please, dear Lord, let someone make the movie so we can change the subject." Opal would have been so thrilled to see the Christy TV series, and I'm sure she would be totally pleased with what executive producer Ken Wells, also a person with a purpose and commitment, accomplished with the Christy series. It was the answer to the prayers of many on earth, and who knows, maybe in heaven too. The writing of Letters to Lori. Writing this book has taken a long time. My children, who were young at the beginning of this task, are now all grown and married. Matt is a lieutenant colonel serving in Baghdad, Iraq. He's married to Shannon and has 2 wonderful children, Ashley 17 and Josh 12. Jonathan is the adolescent services director and clinical supervisor at Claremont Recovery Center, and also has a private practice in the Cincinnati, Ohio area. He is married to Stephanie. We're still hoping for some grandchildren there, but at the present, their Boston Terrier, Rudy, is the baby. Heather is married to Jared Lanza and lives in Maryland. They have the sweetest little girl named Autumn, 5, and their son Lincoln was born September 2006. Like a few other things, if I had known what would be involved and how much time and effort would be required, I don't know if I would have taken it on. But I truly believe that it was a project the Lord wanted me to complete. I can only hope that Opal's life will encourage others to be the Lord's dwelling place, and that they too will serve Him with their whole being. I have in my possession an article written about Catherine Marshall that says she was often discouraged during the writing of Christy, and many times I tossed aside the manuscript just knowing I would never complete it. I will never be anywhere close to a Catherine Marshall, but that much we have in common. During those times of almost wanting to give up, it seemed that God always sent someone at just the right time to encourage me. Some of those were John Bartlett, manager of a family bookstore in Cincinnati, and now with Answers in Genesis, Kenneth Wright and Betty Linder, friends from our days at Teen Challenge Cincinnati, Joyce Smoke, Manley's aunt, and my daughter Heather. I also had the privilege of meeting a very gracious man, Ken Wells, executive producer of the Christy series at the Christy Fest in 2000. He also encouraged me to complete my book. My greatest and constant encourager has always been my husband, Manley. At all times, believing in the project and in me, he loved Opal as deeply as I did. A couple of comparisons between Catherine Marshall and Christy and me in Letters to Lori. It took Catherine 9 years to produce her masterpiece, Christy. It's only taken me 18 years. I've worked twice as long, but still, as a writer, I'm not half as good. Christy started out to be about Catherine's mother, but it evolved into much more, and she published it as a novel that she claims is about 65% factual, the rest fiction. With Letters to Lori, I've tried to stay 100% true to what Opal told me, and her stories have been changed very little. Some dialogue was added to make them a little more readable, and I also added description to tie segments together or to make the reading more comprehensible. The grammar was also greatly improved, but not made perfect in order to make Letters to Lori more understandable. There are a few places where I had to interpret some information as best I could, but I'm sure there is one thing both Catherine and I shared while enduring these projects. We will forever be changed by the lives of those we wrote about. Wonderful, isn't it? Then the rest of the book, I'm not going to go over it, but it's like there's an Appendix A. The characters list all the characters out and details about that. Appendix B is important dates in Ebenezer Mission's history, and that it's actually Marilyn Dean Mitchum let Barbara put this part in there. So it's her, actually information from her is the important dates and then a little bit of writing at the end, but I'm not going to read that. So that concludes our book. I would disagree with Barbara about one thing. Now, I loved Christy. If you've not read that book, you would really enjoy it. I loved it. And I agree, Catherine Marshall's a great writer, but you know what? So is Barbara. She says she's not half the writer that Catherine Marshall is, or was. I believe she is. I believe she is. She did such a good job on Opal. Such a wonderful job. This is just the best book. Now, the beginning of this part starts kind of the last little bit I read that was directly from Opal, about how fast she can't believe time goes by. You're probably the same as I am. I can't believe that this is October of this year, 2025, but I really don't know where the last 2 years went, or the 3 years. The older I get, the faster time seems to go by. And it is true, even if we live a very long life, if you were blessed to be in good health and live to be 100, it's still just like that. It just goes by so fast, so quickly. So, and I think Opal there at the end, when especially losing her sisters, she said she lost them that same, fairly close together. And just getting older in general makes you think of those things. It makes you look back and see, if you're a parent, you can probably look back and see, like I'm going through right now with my grandsons. Sometimes kids are a handful, and you think, my goodness, will they ever get out of this stage? I can see Corey and Katie thinking that in Austin, see their parents thinking that. But for me, on this side, I know, yeah, they'll get out of that stage, and just before you know it, they'll be having kids of their own. That's just how fast it goes by. So I think that's common for all people to do what Opal was doing right there. I love that she could look back over her life and say she really didn't have any regrets, that she was really, tried to do what the Lord wanted her to do, and that's just such a wonderful thing. I hope I'm able to say that. I hope that I have the ability, when it's my time to go, that I would say that. I think that right now, that, there's things I regret as far as things I wish, I hadn't messed up, or things like that. But, praise the Lord, as a believer, I know my God forgives me of those things that I shouldn't have done, or maybe even the things I should have done that I didn't do, those kind of things. But really beautiful ending there by Opal. Just to sum up all the stories that she's told us during this book. But then I love Barbara's ending too, the epilogue. I really love that. I love that beautiful poem that she shared to begin with, about how the commonplace, we do think about things being commonplace or everyday, but it's so true. What a beautiful poem, how to think about that. Well, there's nothing more commonplace or every day than the sun and the moon, but what would we do without them? What would we do without them? So really, I love how Barbara used that to make the point that Opal was just a common person. She's just a common lady, mountain lady, but look what she did. Look what she did. Touched so many lives, and her tentacles definitely reached there in her area, from the Ebenezer Mission or the Ebenezer Church to Del Rio to Newport when she went to the school at Highlands, definitely in all that area. But, I think that as those roots went into those people in those areas, then they took they had been influenced by Opal to other places. Anyone that's read this book now can say the same. Anyone that's watched these videos on YouTube can say the same. We've all been touched by Opal. And so she was just a common mountain woman, but look what she's accomplished, what she accomplished in her life there, but also beyond that. And Barbara was definitely part of that, so I want to keep bragging on her. And I love, the intersection of her and Catherine Marshall too, and Christy and Opal, how it all become mixed up together. If it hadn't been for the mission that Opal loved so much, Catherine Marshall wouldn't have wrote Christy. If she hadn't wrote Christy, Barbara wouldn't have never found Opal. It's just all interwoven together in a beautiful, beautiful patchwork way. It's just beautiful. So I hope you enjoyed the book, of course, but I hope that you enjoyed as much as I do Barbara's thoughts, her closing thoughts. They're really beautiful. And, I think about 18 years. Would I give 18 years to somebody like that, that's just a labor of love. Is not the, I mean, that just doesn't even say enough. You know, if you think about, it reminds me of like projects I had to do at work, working in, you know, in a, at the college or even at the folk school, and that I was responsible for, and some of them were long projects, and how you just had to work with them, and this would go wrong, and then you had to do that. Maybe during the middle of that project you got sick and you didn't feel good, and you had to drop it and then pick it back up. Maybe somebody come in the middle of the project and said, I really don't want you to do that, I want you to do this, and you had to scrap it and start over. You know, all those frustrations. But to do it with nobody making you do it, 18 years of writing, it's just amazing. I'm so thankful Barbara did it, and I do think that it was part of, she says she thinks it was part of God's plan for her life. I believe it was, for many different reasons, but one of the reasons is for me and you, because we've enjoyed Opal, we've learned from her, we've been inspired by her, and none of that would have been possible without Barbara. So I'm really thankful for Opal, her life, and that she wanted to document all this, but I'm very thankful too for Barbara that she saw it to fruition all those years, and all the, you know, things that got in her way, and that she just got tired, I'm sure, of fooling with it, wanted it to be over and go on with the rest of her life, all those things. I'm so glad she persevered, and I know you are too. I hope that you'll drop back by next Friday. I don't know exactly what book we'll be reading, but we will be reading another book, so I hope you join me for that. You remember, if you'd like to pick up a copy of Opal, I have them in my Etsy shop. That link is in the description below. And even if you don't buy a book, I would just ask you to do this. I don't think I've ever asked this at the end of a book, but I would ask you, you don't have to buy the book, but anytime you're around people and you hear them start talking about books like Christy, books about Appalachian women, books about strong women, any of those things, books about the East Tennessee mountains, books about Del Rio, any of those subjects that come up, tell them about this book. Now, they certainly don't have to buy it from me. They can find it online in different places, but tell them. Let's help the world know about Opal and her wonderful, wonderful legacy. I'll see you next Friday for another book.